don't want 100 signs down there, first of all. Somebody met with one. Okay.
Or else, I think the other. We also reached out to the Downtown Business Association of Fargo on how they do snow removal and parking, just to get some of their.
Well, I'm okay if they do it, during the winter time, like for that.
Tuesday, Thursday.
Or the 2 to 6 a.m. stuff, yeah, we didn't, I just don't. VF, that whole area is about 4 or 5. And there's nothing here that says how many mats putting up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the West Fargo City Commission meeting for December 5th. Before we start the meeting, I would remind everyone to please silence their cell phones with the exception of our Chief of Police. So if you would please silence your phones. With that, would you please join me for a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business is to approve the agenda. Commissioners, it has been distributed.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. It has been moved to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson, seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes of November 21st, 2022. It is in the packet. It has been distributed and is on pages 3 through 5.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 21st, 2022 as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is the building permits report. It has been distributed. It was in your packets. It's on pages 6 through 8.
Make motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits as distributed. They are in pages 6 through 8 in your packet. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the consent agenda. We have items A through D, starting on pages 9, ending on pages 21. It has been distributed and it was in the packet. May I have a clarification, please, on item B with regard to the initiating a seasonal shutdown? How does this affect some of the developers that put in their own streets and their own sewer and water? Are they exempt from this discussion of getting any more permits for the right-of-way? I mean, they're private development. Is that part of the equation or not?
That's a good question. Thank you, Commissioner, President Dardis, and Commissioners. What the seasonal shutdown is for is generally for your utility companies that are just trying to do some work that's non-emergency, for them to be able to come in and do those. As far as I know, any new developments that have been out there, utility companies have worked ahead of this frost. So this is generally that we're not wanting them to cut into any paved or hard drivable surfaces, because at this point you can't return it to a drivable condition for the winter. So I'm sure if there was something that was in green space or something like that, we could definitely talk and look to them. But for the most part, this is to protect our streets from utility companies doing excavation there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hanson. So again, the consent agenda is before you, Commissioners, items A through D.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda, items A through D, as distributed. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 1, a 90-minute parking and no parking signs downtown. Mr. Matt Anvik, Director of Public Works for the City of West Fargo, is in pages 22 through 26 in the packets. It has been distributed. Good evening, Mr. Anvik. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioner President, Commissioners. The first item I have in tonight is 90-minute parking and the no parking signs downtown. Last winter, we had a lot of complaints about parking and issues with cars parking overnight and just not being able to either clean snow or some customers not being able to find decent parking spots close to a lot of the businesses that were in the Firm and Pioneer Place. We had a couple businesses and one commissioner ask about why there was no parking, or 90-minute parking, sorry, in front of the VFW, but not the other two buildings. We started looking into it a little bit. I guess as you can see, that's the 90-minute parking sign right in front of the VFW there. And just as some background, this is what it looked like last winter, with the 90-minute parking in front of the VF. It was fairly clear there, and now this is in front of the Firm, and a few different shots here in front of Pioneer Place. And that's what we were trying to kind of get around with bringing this 90 minutes forward. Once we were talking about it, we were like, it seems to be working in front of the VFW. Let's just kind of bring that forward. And then as we're bringing that forward, I'd like to do no parking 2 days a week where we can come in and clean. We were shooting for 2 a.m.
Overnight parking?
No overnight, for 2 a.m. Well, I guess it wouldn't even be overnight. It'd be between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So it only 4 hours. And that would just be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting November 1st and ending on April 1st. And then to kind of avoid any confusion, we would take those signs down, that first week in April, and then put them back up that last week in October, since it's basically there for snow removal. We don't need those signs up. And once we put those up, that'll only take us a few hours, or not even less than an hour, to take those signs down. What we were first proposing is, as you can see here, the 90-minute parking currently is in front of the VFW. We were proposing in front of the diagonal parking spots in front of the Firm and the Pioneer Place. And then the proposed no parking 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Would be from 7th Avenue all the way to Main Avenue, just on Cheyenne Street alone. We wouldn't do the side streets on that. It would just be there. As we bring this forward, we were kind of asked to make sure that we talk to the businesses downtown. Myself and our economic development manager, Casey, reached out to a few businesses down there, and we did get some really constructive feedback from them. Just about everybody everybody we talked to really liked the idea of the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. no parking, so we could get there and clean, because that's one of the main complaints down there, is when people have to step over snowbanks or anything like that, where we can come in there and clean that, and it's just easier for everybody to get out of there and park. As far as the 90-minute parking, they did have some concerns. They were worried that just a 90-minute parking alone is not going to solve the lack of parking down there for those businesses. So they had some concerns on that. And then they were wondering, well, where are these people going to park if they have to repark? If they're, are they going to start going to the neighbors across the street, or are they going to start parking on parking lots that aren't meant for shopping? So their concern was, are we going to create more of an issue by doing this 90-minute parking? And then another one was the goal of downtown. They're worried, about, it was meant for walkability, park once and walk around. So it was really good feedback from them. So it was kind of the general consensus is they weren't really sure if it would really benefit them much for the 90-minute parking. Bringing it forward tonight and with those concerns in mind, there's a few options that you can take. I guess you can approve it as we had kind of where I first brought it up with the 90-minute and just the 2-hour or the 4-hour parking. Or we can kind of listen to those concerns, which probably would be the way to go. If it was kind of meant for the business's benefit, and if they don't really see the benefit, I'm not sure we should maybe move forward with that. So I'll leave it up to the commission on where you'd like to go with that. But I would, for public works standpoint and in the businesses down there, I believe that no parking at 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Would benefit everybody down there as well. As far as cost, it would be less than $1,500 for the signs to put them up. And if we don't do the 90-minute parking signs, it'll be even less. And signs are about 3 to 4 weeks out, and we'll take care of that. So I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Andrick. Commissioners, questions for the,
Just
please, Commissioner Wilson.
south of 7th Avenue to 13th, we have no parking overnight too, don't we?
Currently, yes.
Okay, so that would be consistent all the way from Main down to 13th, no parking on Cheyenne Street on certain nights.
Is it the same night, Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Thursday?
I don't know.
I believe that actually it's further south is at all times,
All the time.
I think.
On the,
West side of the road, I believe.
yeah, on the west side, yeah, you can't park, but we don't have business down south, so.
Right.
My question is, how many signs are we talking, Matt?
It'd be 8 to 10.
Because you don't have any, you don't have how many,
Yeah, I believe it'd be about,
where, I mean, I think right now, that VF parking lot, we probably have 5 total.
Right.
That whole block.
yep.
I don't, and
When we would be putting them right probably on the light posts. So, they'd be spaced far enough apart. And we're talking no parking signs. The 90-minute parking signs, if we did that, I believe there was about 3 we'd put up. So if we just did the no parking signs from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., we're talking 8 or 9 signs possibly.
Does anybody here happen to know what the VFW thinks of the 90-minute parking? Does anybody even know? I mean, how is that working? Have we had complaints? Anybody? I mean, if I go to the bar, it's more than 90 minutes, so
Yeah.
that's personal.
I
But
haven't heard of any, I haven't heard of anybody getting dispatched down to address the 90-minute parking.
I'm just joking, by the way, on that one.
Stop it.
Yeah, don't take that. So yeah, I'm just, Ms. Hawk, can we ask the public to come to give their input?
You certainly can, Commissioner.
that?
Thank you, Mr. Any more questions from Mr. Andrick? Commissioner Olson?
I don't know if it's a question, more of a comment. I just would like to see it be consistent along that whole stretch of businesses. It's, not to just have 90-minute parking in front of one building and not any others. So it's either the same all the way, either we have 90-minute parking from the areas that Mr. Advick has identified, or we don't have any 90-minute parking, one or the other.
Well, I
And
guess
have
that's
it-
our
we
option,
can't have it-
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, right. We can't have it half, I don't think it'd be.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. I wonder if we should have them at all myself, but.
I don't know how it even
Well, we
happened
would-
in front of there anyway.
So then are you suggesting then that we would have the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Tuesdays through Thursdays through
Yep,
the winter season, consistent all the way down?
right.
Yeah, okay. All right, good discussion. Anybody else for Mr. Andrick?
Yeah, I think,
Commissioner Anderson?
yeah, thank you. I think the 90-minute kind of goes, it's kind of contradicting what we're hearing about lack of parking, especially the longer term parking. I feel like this might extend into some safety issues. If we put 90-minute parking in front of those buildings, people might start parking north of 2nd Avenue, and we get into another issue that we have down at 5th Avenue on the west side of Cheyenne where you can't see, when you're turning, you can't see oncoming traffic. I know Sunday mornings it gets to be a little tough when church is in service, so I'm in favor of the no parking Tuesdays and Thursdays, but not the 90-minute.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? additional comments?
I would just like, if we could, perhaps before, I don't hate to put somebody on the spot, but I want to, Ms. Haas, because obviously they have property down there and they have a lot of it. And so we would most certainly encourage your input into this if we could.
We'd invite you to the mic. I'd also like to thank Mr. Anvik and Ms. Sanders from Economic Development. Last week, when I saw this come through on the agenda, I asked them both to reach out to the folks downtown to make sure that we'd had conversation, and they did a very diligent job at that. So Matt, thank you. Casey, thank you for that. Amy, please.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome.
What? Oh, thank you. Can you hear me? Commissioners, thank you. I think just from Epic's perspective, we'd like to be part of the conversation as the building owner. I totally respect that they reached out to our commercial tenants. We also have their best interest in mind, so we would like a seat at the table to chat about it. I think the 90-minute is more of a Band-Aid of a bigger issue of we need more parking downtown. And, you know, a couple years ago, the city had talked about doing this master plan of parking, a big parking map from Main to 7th, and I can't remember how far over, talking about where you can park on the streets, what hours, and just being very specific as to how they were gonna develop a downtown parking area, just to help commercial tenants, residents, businesses, customers, and we haven't seen that. And I think if we could collectively, as a group, kind of look at that and work together, Epic would certainly like to, have a seat, and any other developers interested in that area, we'd love to have, but I guess we're not in favor of the 90-minute because there's not enough parking down there anyways, and if it's not regulated, I guess I don't know the point personally, so.
Thank you very much. Any
Thank you.
questions for the lady? Thank you.
Thanks.
So commissioners, we have a number of alternatives that, whatever your suggestion might be. Anything additional from Mr. Anvik? Please,
I
Commissioner
do one additional
Simmons.
one. If this should go for not doing the 90-minute signs and just the Tuesdays and Thursdays ones from 2 to 6 a.m., what do we do about the 90-minute signs in front of the VFW?
They would come down, wouldn't they not?
Well, we would have to tell them that. They just can't automatically do it. I mean, would have to be part of our discussion, I'm assuming, if we want to be consistent, and I think we should be. So I guess if nobody's done, I'll make the motion that
I would, and I would recommend that, again, I'm going to call on Ms. Sanders from Economic Development, that she'd have that conversation with the management team at the VFW as to what we decide on this evening. She's developing a great rapport with all of those folks downtown, and so I would charge her with that responsibility.
I think, I'm sorry, but I think Ms. Haas had one more.
Certainly, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out as well that right now the old Berg Auto lot is being used for parking, and that was a collaboration with the city and Epic. We would like to develop there eventually. That was our goal, but we've sat down with our commercial tenants and they are very nervous about where they're going to park if we develop there. Therefore, we are not building there right now, and that's really too bad because we would love to be able to, create more development along Cheyenne. So keep that in mind as well, that our goal would be to develop there, which would take away more parking.
Thank you for that comment. That should initiate some more conversations that we would like to have that developed as well. So, but we do have to come up with a master parking plan. Anything else for Mr. Anvik? Commissioners, you thought this through and how you'd like to proceed?
I guess I'll make the motion to approve the no parking Tuesdays and Thursdays, and no 90-minute parking. Not approving that, and take down the 90-minute parking in front of the VFW.
No 90-minute parking on the entire Main to 7th Avenue that we've initiated for that area.
Correct, just the no
Very good.
parking
Is there a
Tuesdays,
second,
Thursdays.
please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the implementation of a no parking from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Tuesdays through Thursdays during the winter months. and to remove the 90-minute parking signs in front of the VFW. And we would ask our Economic Development Director, Casey Sanders, to please have that conversation with them.
Could I?
Is there any discussion? Please. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mayor. Yes, could I add a friendly amendment to that?
The second is Mr. Olson. I have to ask you if you'd,
We'll have to hear the amendment.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I guess I want to limit how many signs we put down there. I don't want 50 signs, every 6 feet or 8 feet. I mean, I don't think we need that.
No.
I really like what we did in front of the VF with that sign, even though we're gonna take that distance, I'm saying. I don't like signs all over the place, oops. So if there's a way that we could,
we'll rely on Mr. Anvik's good judgment on that.
Yeah, I think we're talking 7th Avenue to Main and maybe 8 or 9 signs on both sides. So, I mean, you're talking 4 or 5 signs maybe.
is that good? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm good.
We're good with that, all right?
That's going to be on both sides of Cheyenne.
Correct, yes.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Anvik. Item number 2 is Project 9027, a Public Works asphalt paving citywide. Mr. Matt Anvik, Director of Public Works. It's on page 27 of the packet, and it has been distributed.
Good evening, Commission President, Commissioners.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I really left a long time there, so I come right back. So our next one, as you recall, last fall, we came in front of you and asked for a purchase of a paver, which we used last fall on 9th Street, or not, I'm getting my years mixed up. This last year on 9th Street and, was it 7th Avenue North there? Yep. And it worked out really well. The only hiccup that we had is we had to go and try and rent some rollers to be able to come behind that and make everything, packed down and level. The one we got was a little bit too heavy, so they basically couldn't stop it. They had to keep moving it back and forth because if they stopped it, we had a little bit of indents in the one spot, but that was for the fact that right now equipment's really hard to rent, and to try and find them, it was kind of a last minute and kind of frustrating to try and, for staff to try and find. So what we're recommending, we went out and kind of got some bids from 4 different places to buy 2 different rollers for the equipment and a trailer to go with those. The total price for the 2 that we're asking for was $132,750, and then the trailer itself would be $73,300. The trailer is actually a little bit different because it angles into the back, so it's almost like a 0 entry trailer because of the low angle of, well, one, the paving unit itself. The skid plates in the back sit pretty low, and then with the rollers, it's a lot easier for those rollers to get up there because you don't have quite that incline. So what we're asking for is approval to purchase the 2 Packers and the trailer. I don't know if I have the total cost on here. I think I did. I want to say, what is it? About 205,000-ish and change.
Trailer 73,300.
Yep, and then with 102,000 or 132,750 for the 2 Packers themselves.
206,000 total.
Yep, and then if you want to look at it one way, I guess we had kind of ran total cost of ownership of those. With these, we just kind of did a life cycle of 10 years, but the amount we're going to be using them would probably be about 15. We'd be able to stretch that longer. Currently, right now, it's $4,000 a month to rent one of these machines. If you go through the whole total life cycle, a yearly cost to own them is about $4,100 for the one, and then $4,200. So basically, we'd have payback of these in 4 years if we, were to rent them. Plus, this is at this time of year, I guess it's really hard to find the equipment, and if we go out there and either rent, to me, I guess it seems like a waste if we're renting it for an entire month to use it for 2 days, because those are the only days that we can get at it 1 month, but then the next month we can use it for 2 weeks. I think it's better if we can have it on hand where we can go, because if we can go out and say we're gonna rent this thing for 2 weeks and it rains for those 2 weeks, now we have to try and work with the rentals companies to try and find that. This will actually benefit us and our operations by owning these, and they will last us probably 10 to 15 years. With that, I guess we'll stand for questions.
Questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Olson?
So you've got a double drum roller and a combination roller. What's the difference and why do we need two?
The one, I don't know if I can get, I think the combination roller, one of them kind of packs it and kind of vibrates everything out to get it kind of level and nice and packed tight. And then the other one is what comes and seals it, so it gets that nice smooth finish on it.
Okay.
So the one, I think, is water cooled and it goes through there and just gets that smooth finish on it. The other one is make sure that we can roll it and pack that down tight.
Water one, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Simmons?
Matt, do you have enough employees to, I guess, use this equipment? I mean, are you going to come next year and say we need another person to operate this equipment?
No, right now we do, but usually when we do larger projects like this, it's kind of all hands on deck, and we have guys from the water crew driving trucks and different things and helping out, so we can do these things. But as of right now, no, I'm not, planning to come for another. Just because we're purchasing this, it doesn't mean we're going to ask for another employee. No.
And this was in your 2023 work plan, this equipment?
Yeah, it was part of, I guess I skipped over that. The funding for this would come out of the capital improvement sales tax. In the CIP, we put aside for projects, the citywide paving projects is kind of what we took the money out of last year to do those, or this year. I'm working on budgets ahead of time, so I'm sorry my years are getting screwed up, but we took that out of that capital improvement sales tax to cover these funds. And what we can do in-house, we can get a lot more done for that money than we could if we were going to do those projects and bid those out. So it was part of that, the CIP of last year, I guess.
Mrs. Fisk? So this would come out of the capital improvement sales tax fund?
Yes, yes, it would.
So in your CIP for 2023, about what was your estimate for how much repaving surfaces? I mean, how did you have a number of projects? You have it listed as 9027 for project 9027 for 2023. I'm sure that's kind of a lump sum citywide type of project identifier.
Yeah, I think we had about 300. I think we just had a number in there. We had about 350,000 in there because of we can basically pare down the list of projects that we can do. There's certain ones that we want to hit next year, and make sure that we hit this list. So this would come out of this cost would come out of that line item now. So that would leave us, a little over 100,000, almost.
Very good.
Doing the map, we could do that. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions? Commissioners? Thank you, man.
I'll make the motion to approve the purchase.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second? Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George, second. Been moved and seconded to approve the equipment purchase as outlined in project number 9027, Public Works asphalt paving equipment for the tune of $206,000. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Anvik. Item number 3 is a resolution of support for the FM Metropolitan Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. We're going to welcome to the podium Mr. Dan Farnsworth of MetroCog. It's on pages 28 through 85 of our packet. And we also have with Mr. Farnsworth, Mr. Malachi Peterson, City Planner for City of West Fargo.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President and Commissioners. So in June of last year, MetroCog began the Fargo-Moorhead Metropolitan Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. This is a plan that MetroCog does every 5 years with assistance from local jurisdictions, including our own. This plan was guided by a 23-member study review committee, including representation from the city of West Fargo. Attached to your packets is the draft of the plan. And Dan, tonight, he will be going over some of the highlights of the plan, and then at the end of his presentation, he'll be available for any questions, along with myself. At the end of his presentation, we'll be asking for approval of the attached resolution in support of the plan, which was recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their November 8th meeting last month. Without further ado, I'll introduce Dan.
Thank you, Malachi. Good evening, welcome.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Thanks for your time, and I'll keep this to about 10 minutes or less here for you all. Looks like it did win the Most Pages Award on this, so that's something else. You'll notice here there is a hyperlink on the memo that you received, and if you want to see the appendices, you can see those as well, which is also an important part of the plan. So you can be glad that I didn't include those inside your packet. So with that, I'll get going with this little presentation here. So the Fargo-Moorhead area does have a rich history of bicycle and pedestrian planning, dates back to about 1975 from what we can see in our records. And so every 5 years, we update the bicycle and pedestrian plan for the Fargo-Moorhead metro area. And that includes, you know, even as far out as Mapleton and Horace and Harwood. And so that includes the whole metro area. You can see on the screen there that our last plan there was the 2016 plan, and then this one that's brought in front of you is the 22 plan. So about every 5 years. And this plan, as with our other ones, look at the existing conditions of what's out there today, what are some of the policies that are out there, some of the what can be done better. We also look at there's an implementation strategy within this plan and recommendations in the plan. So why is this plan important? Why do we do this? Why do we do it every 5 years? There's a few reasons. It's very helpful for your jurisdiction, for your staff members to refer to, and you as elected officials to refer to, and the public to take a look at and refer to when it comes to looking at what are the needs in our area for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. We did work a lot with the public. We had 2 different public input meetings, which I'll go over here on the next few slides. And they were, we received a lot of good input from the public, and it's important to hear from them to see what their needs and desires are when it comes to bicycle and pedestrian mobility. And then lastly, another very important part of this plan is that it does help jurisdictions when they are applying for grants. So you can see there in the picture is 2 pictures there, the shared use path that recently got constructed over the Drain 45, that'd be between Cheyenne Street and Veterans Boulevard, or 9th Street, I guess. And that's it was 2 phases and a mile total of that path. And so that was constructed using a TA grant, and that was in our last plan. So very good project that West Fargo did there. As far as the public engagement goes, there were 2 phases of the public engagement. The first was to just get the general ideas of what the public wanted to see, and we had surveys, and we had an online map that the public could put their comments on. So 347 online survey respondents we had, and 256 map interactions happened during that first meeting, which was July of 21 through November 21. Phase 2 was the spring of 2022, and we didn't have quite as many online respondents, but we had a lot of public respondents on the online map interactions. So really happy to see that engagement from the public. And so some of the things that we heard from the public were the public really enjoys the trails. They enjoy those trails that are set back from the roadway, that aren't maybe right there on the street, with a little bit of buffer space between moving traffic, ideally greenways they love to see. So you can see in the picture there, and it would be the proposed FM Greenway trail that could potentially be along the diversion. MetroCog recently did a study on that, and that's what that picture comes from there. And public also wanted to see better upkeep in the winter of the trails, and maintenance on the trails or bike lanes, and sidewalks for that matter as well. I will say that West Fargo's done a really good job recently with the with the Parks District in starting to remove the snow from their trails. We've noticed in our bicycle pedestrian counts that we do. We have an automated counter near Rendezvous Park, and we've noticed those numbers go up considerably in the winter because of the snow removal that the Parks Department has been doing recently. Flooding has been an issue, not so much here in West Fargo, but along the river trails. It's always a pain for people to try to get around when there's mud on the trails or there's just too much water to even walk or bike on those trails. Winter weather can't control that. Lack of lighting is another thing we heard from the public, lack of signage, and then poor trail conditions. I'm not sure so much if that applies to West Fargo. I know a lot of your trails are fairly new. Maybe in the core of your city, maybe they're a little bit older, but you have a lot of new trails, so West Fargo's done a great job. Signing is one thing that could be considered, maybe some sign kiosks around the trail system. River crossings was another thing we heard from the public. A lot of that would be referring to the Red River, but that would also refer to the Cheyenne River as well. I know the city of West Fargo has been looking for a crossing. They applied recently for a grant to cross the Cheyenne River just west of Costco. Better education to the public. Some drivers may not know all the rules of the road when passing a bicyclist, or if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, do I stop, do I not? And then likewise with the bikers or the pedestrians, what am I supposed to do at this intersection? So a little more education there. And then lastly, resources and partnerships. So this is kind of the maybe what you say one of the focal points, or the focal point of the plan are the recommendations, and this is the recommendations map. It's a little bit zoomed out here. It might be hard to see for you all, but what you see in green are the existing shared use paths. What you see it's a little bit hard to tell here, but in purple would be anything that's on street. So whether that be bike lanes or wide shoulders. The shoulders would mostly apply to the rural areas. And then what you see in red would be the recommendations. Now, there's no time frame of when we would recommend that these be built, but it's in the plan. It comes from past plans, say our last plan. It comes from public input. It comes from the recent plans that City of West Fargo has done, like the West Fargo 2.0. So anyway, that's the recommendations map. You can see there on the left side of your screen, that is the FM diversion and a potential trail along there. We even still show the Cheyenne diversion trail. There's been talks of that over the years, and so we show that on there. Don't feel comfortable removing that quite yet, and we'll see if that comes to fruition as well. We'll see. It might be one of the diversion trails and maybe not both of them. It's hard to say. Just want to point to Appendix G in the report. We find this would be really useful for your staff when it comes to designing different bikeways or different corridors for pedestrians or streetscapes. And so this, I think, 87-page appendix here, which shows just all sorts of design, whether it be shared use path, bike lanes, complete streetscapes. And so we find this would be very useful. Just wanted to point it out as part of this plan. And then just the last slide, just want to kind of point out the relationship between land use and how the urban design is designed and how that can improve walking and biking within your community. And so a lot of times we think that, well, we'll just put out some shared use paths or maybe some bike lanes or some sidewalks and people will just walk. But if there's a lot of urban sprawl or leapfrog development or just not a very comfortable environment for those pedestrians, you won't see as many of them. So as you add a little more density, as you've done a great job in your downtown recently, along with over there by 32nd and Cheyenne Street with the lights on Cheyenne, that really can add to a more walkable community. So just want to applaud the City of West Fargo for the recent work done in that, and I encourage you to keep doing that, because you'll end up with a more walkable and bikeable city, because there'll be more generators of people who want to walk in those comfortable environments. So anyway, just wanted to point that out as another part of the plan here as we talk about land use and how that relates to transportation and walking and biking. So With that said, just a quick little summary of the report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Commissioners?
No questions, but a comment. I do go out and walk quite a bit, and our public needs to be educated, especially the looking out for pedestrians, because there's many times that I'll be heading north along Cheyenne Street, and all of a sudden I hear and feel somebody pull in right behind me, and I'm still in the crosswalk, and they're turning west onto a street, and it's like, holy cow, you know, and they don't understand that a pedestrian is the same as a vehicle in an intersection. But they don't think vehicles are the same. If they're in a hurry, they're going to go through it anyway. So, but education is a big thing.
I have one comment on page 3 of your acknowledgements of your participants. We're very proud of the fact that Aaron Nelson is with the city of West Fargo and not as he's listed in your listing.
Oh, well, our apologies.
Yeah.
He does a great.
I'm not signing this till you get Aaron right where he belongs.
Oh, I see where you're.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
You bet.
Well, yeah, I think that was his involvement in the earlier parts of the plan.
Commissioner?
Just a quick comment, too, is I'm excited to see some of the future bike and ped paths that you have in the plan, especially there's certain areas that there is a lack of connectivity, and I see that you have addressed those in the plan, so I'm happy to see that. I'm really excited someday about, 12th Avenue maybe going all the way out to that diversion path. I think that would be really awesome. As far as bike lanes on the street, I know as somebody who does like to bike, I don't like the bike lanes on the road. To me, that scares me. So when you see it show in the plan where there's a bit of a barrier there, that's definitely preferred. I think other people that I've spoken to feel the same. But I think it's a great plan overall. I'm excited to see the future with it. So.
All right, thank you. That echoes the public's comments as well.
Anyone else? We're looking for a resolution of support. Is the intent for this item this evening?
I'll make the motion with the one correction. We move
I was going to just say the same
Nelson
thing.
into the west Fargo there.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there
Second.
Commissioner Simmons, second. Been moved and seconded to pass the resolution of support for the FM Metropolitan Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan as presented this evening by MetroCog, and with one amendment. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you all, and we'll make that change.
Thank you. Item number 4 is a discussion on the proposed downtown master plan and grant award. We're going to call on Mr. Aaron Nelson, Director of Planning and Zoning for the City of West Fargo. It is in the packet and is on pages 86 through 88, has been distributed. Good evening, Mr. Nelson. Welcome back to the City of West Fargo.
Thank you and good evening. Yes, I think Dan was right. That was in a previous capacity of mine, so appreciate you pointing that out. So item number 4, this is an informational and discussion item for you guys tonight to formally announce a grant award and then to also discuss the related opportunity to leverage this grant for the development of a broader downtown master plan. So we'd like to kind of introduce that as a potential topic for consideration. But I'll start with the grant award. As most of you have probably heard by now, the city was awarded a downtown placemaking grant at the Governor's Main Street Initiative in Bismarck, I think a little over a month ago now. This grant comes through the North Dakota Department of Commerce. It is really intended to help communities develop plans for placemaking as a development tool to attract and retain everything from businesses to residents to workforce. And then for those of you who are not familiar, placemaking is kind of a newer buzzword, if you will, but in essence, it's got a few different definitions, but generally refers to the creation of memorable, quality, desirable places through a people-centered approach to the planning, design, and management of such places. So placemaking is kind of I think of it as an umbrella term for a lot of different things, whether that might be public art or different activities, I think, West Fest in downtown West Fargo is a prime example of something that adds to West Fargo's sense of place, especially the Cheyenne Street corridor there. West Fargo was one of 6 communities to be selected for funding through this. It was a competitive application process, and so I do want to give a quick shout out to Malachi in the planning department, Casey in economic development, and then Rachel in our communications department. Those 3 worked together to put together what we heard was one of the better applications that the state had received. So I just wanted to pass that along. The grant itself can be used to fund a consulting team to manage the project in partnership with the city of West Fargo. And then another item of note is just that the grant does have an October 1st, 2023 deadline for which the city to utilize those funds. The grant itself is reimbursement, and so the city would be required to front the costs of any study, and with the reimbursement coming at the back end. So that's kind of the grant in a nutshell. And along the same lines as the grant award, the need for an updated downtown master plan was identified as part of the ongoing planning needs assessment, which was recently discussed at the October 17th City Commission meeting. I know it was a few meetings ago, but hopefully some of you recall some of the findings from that study. The need for an updated downtown master plan was one of those higher level needs that was, identified through conversations with staff, through online input from commissioners, as well as some conversation with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The city's existing 2011 Cheyenne Street and Main Avenue framework study helped pave the way and was really probably a catalyst for much of the redevelopment and changes that the city's seen in the last decade or so. But there's really a need for an updated roadmap to help chart the course for kind of the next evolution of downtown, if you will. Just because that plan has become, it's largely outdated at this point in time, just due to the amount of changes along Cheyenne Street especially. So with this in mind, there is a great opportunity for the city to consider broadening the scope of study when considering a downtown placemaking plan. There is an opportunity to add to that scope of work for it to become more than just a placemaking plan for downtown, but to become more of a downtown master plan more generally. And so to help kind of start some of this discussion, within your packet here attached to the cover memo, staff has put together just a first stab at a project overview of some options for some additional scope of work. I'll just kind of walk through this. Hopefully you had a chance to kind of read through it ahead of time, but we tried to break down some of the components and discussion items relating to downtown, identifying some of the purpose and need for a study like this, some of the potential issues that we've heard or have seen in recent years, identify some of the potential project outcomes for a project like this. But for purposes of tonight, what I want to call your attention to is the plan focus areas, starting at the bottom of page 1 there, and then at the top of page 2. So at this point in time, we've kind of identified 4 categories, if you will, of some potential study. Firstly is, at the bottom of page 1 there, is just business and economic development. As you look through, for example, the West Fargo 2.0 comprehensive plan, you will see there is a lot of recommended action steps and different things that plan points to in terms of areas that the city could be looking at in order to, perhaps calibrate, some of our incentives and different things for some of the vision for downtown West Fargo. And then also, I think downtown West Fargo becoming kind of the cultural center and hub for the city of West Fargo, I think was one of the main, I forget if it's 6 or 8, primary focus areas of the city's comprehensive plan there. Number 2 is related to placemaking. That's in essence what the grant award is for. Again, that can include anything from some of the urban design, some of our zoning standards, streetscape standards, things like that, as well as public and private activity, whether you're trying to encourage restaurants to have some type of a sidewalk presence that can add to the the activity and the sense of being in a downtown urban environment, and then public art. Obviously, with the Cheyenne Street reconstruction project, there was a number of areas identified for future public art that we could utilize and kind of move forward on some of those initiatives. Number 3, relating to parking and access. I know that one came up earlier tonight as an example of something that might be worth looking into more comprehensively, not just on street signage, but also how do we look at parking downtown as a district as opposed to individual properties having to provide their own parking. What are the differences between an urban environment like downtown versus a more of a suburban environment where it's more common to have those individual parking lots. And lastly, infill redevelopment and land use. I kind of think of this as a little bit of a catch-all category, but generally referring to some of the contextual elements of downtown. So as we continue to see infill and investment in the downtown area, especially if we're wanting to see the urban type investment that is identified in some of our recent plans and things, there's undoubtedly going to be some growing pains that come along with that. And so recognizing the context that Cheyenne Street is adjacent to some of our older single-family neighborhoods, for example. What are the potential impacts as downtown continues to grow and densify, and how do we kind of handle those changes as we see those changes come to fruition into the future? So those are some of the things that we're just kind of talking about as staff currently, just to give you a sense of what could be included in a broader scope of study. Just to be upfront with this too, that depending upon the type of scope that if the city commission, if you all are interested in pursuing some additional scope of work elements, depending upon whether or not those particular items fall into the placemaking parameters of the grant, if it falls out of those parameters, it would require the city to chip in some funding to pay for that added scope. So just so you're aware of that as well. So that's just the overview of what's in your packet there. And so why is this on the agenda tonight? So really, I think there's 2 things that we're asking of you tonight. One is we'd like to get a sense from the commission on whether or not you guys are interested in pursuing some additional added scope to the grant. And if so, what are the main issues or focus areas that you all feel are worth fleshing out and looking into a little further? And I can kind of stop there and stand for any questions. Certainly, if you have feedback tonight, we'd love to hear it. And then I can follow up at the end of this with some additional kind of next steps, depending upon some of the conversation tonight. So.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Commissioners, comments, questions? Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. This is all fine if that's what you want to do, but we cannot wait till the 4th quarter of 2023 to figure out this parking problem. That can't be a part of this. We need to do that now. Yep. You talk about the future. There's no future unless we get something done down there. These businesses they're not coming. We're stagnant, and we have been for a couple of years, in all honesty. So we have to, whether we like it or not, whether we have to use EDC funds or whatever we have to use down there, economic development, we have to get going on this. We can't hold back anymore. And Commissioner Olson, I think you said something last week about downtown, and then you kind of stopped, so I wasn't sure where you were going with that. But we need to do something as a commission, folks. We need to, and I'll be honest with you now, I don't care if it's a 5-year TIF, a 10-year, if it's a pilot program. That's what those funds, our citizens gave us that money to use it. And so I'm getting on a little soap opera here, but we need to do something. We've been sitting around for a couple of years and not doing nothing down there.
Well, that's what I brought the paper up, because if you look at it, we can't really say we're a city on the grow because we're not.
But then let's do something, right?
Exactly.
Let's do something. Let's act on it.
That was a little prodding of mine to the rest of the commission here, that we need to think outside the box. And I agree, this study may take longer, but this would be an entire scope of everything. We might be able to do something quicker with the parking.
We need to. There's no might. We need to.
I know. But this entire, what Mr. Nelson is asking for is to have a comprehensive study, rather than.
I realize that, but I'm just jumping on it.
We can maybe work it both
right
ways.
now I'm concerned with the parking.
Yep.
I mean, we need to get something down there, and I guess, I don't know what we do, but I know we need to think outside the box, and we need to look at businesses down there. If there's some, in honesty, we've done a lot of creating financing over the years to get Costco to get different businesses into town. And I think we need to go back to some of that and think outside the box, like you said, and whether it be purchasing property and reinvesting it, sell it, whatever we do, we just need to do something, and we are doing nothing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments to Mr. Nelson?
Well, I think Mr. Nelson hit the 4 items that we really need to concentrate on the downtown area there. We need to build our economic base. We need to have parking. We need to redevelop. And then by doing all that, it becomes a place that people want to come to. It all works together. So I don't know what a consultant would cost to do just the placemaking, but if we need to expand the funds to think outside the box, like Commissioner Simmons has said, just so you all have some to think about for the next couple of weeks, to use some of that economic sales tax funds, because I think we've got about, is it what, close to 2 million, Casey, sitting in the
2.3?
Yeah.
2.4.
So if we use a couple $100,000,
Don't take what I said wrong. I'm not talking about using it for a study or a consultant. I'm talking about using it directly for property or some incentive like that. That's what. So that we're kind of talking two different things here. You know, but I want to make clear what I'm talking about, and it's not for a consultant again.
Well, part of it is, when you have these 4 items, and infill being one of them, parking, they're so intertwined that you can't separate the two. And one has to be addressed before the other, and the fact that we had Ms. Haas in here this evening from Epic Companies talking about, not completing one of their development plans on Cheyenne Street due to the fact that they're being understanding and the needs for parking. That should send a red flag up to all of us that we need to address that. And of course, we have other great community partners, businesses on Cheyenne Street that are in the room as well this evening. And Thunder Coffee is here, and their issues have been, they're mirroring everybody else's. I know we all have concerns about that. That's a great addition to our community for the services that they provide. It's becoming a go-to place for meetings and the like. And it is time we need to incentivize or whatever we need to do to get people to continue to look at that. I know that some of our major developers within the region have a lot of projects going, and not many of them are in West Fargo right now. I mean, obviously, the 4th building out at the Lights is about to come online, which is fantastic and the like, but we're dealing with a parking issue out there as well. And so, the previous city commissions made some bold moves, as you said, which were creative in the manner of which we got to where we are today. But now we're the caregivers and the placeholders of how we continue to move forward. And we have to be receptive to some really creative types of ideas.
Well, Mayor,
but at the same time, spending our taxpayer dollars wisely.
Exactly, but some people may not like it, but I say give me, Tina, and Casey $2 million, and we'll go get your parking downtown. We'll purchase it. But my point is, action's got to be done. We can't just sit here and not do it.
No, you're not getting $2 million.
$3 million would be better then.
All right. But the other thing is that we must, those community partners that we have, they have to be at the table with us. Sometimes when they're working and have their vast experience that they do, they can certainly share some insights of what they might have run into in other communities and the like. So I would highly recommend that Mr. Nelson take all these comments that we have this evening, and you glean those comments. You've heard what Ms. Oz from Epic has said, and we have other interested parties in the room this evening, and I would hope by December 15th you might have just a slight game plan of how we might proceed.
Yes, thank you, and I can speak a little bit to that as well.
Please.
So for anybody interested, at the bottom of page 2, we do kind of list some contact information. We're kind of using Malachi here as our point of contact for the study right now. And so anybody from the public who's interested in providing their thoughts as well, we've been bringing this attachment along. We brought it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Public Arts Advisory Committee, Economic Development Advisory Committee, the Yards Business Association, among others, over the past several weeks to solicit their input as well. Because you're right, this is not meant to be an internal document by any means when it's all said and done. Really, the hope is that this is a community plan, and that many of our community partners would be active participants throughout the planning effort, regardless of what the scope entails.
Thank you for that, Mr. Nelson, but I would respectfully ask that we do something else. And that is, we be proactive as a city, and we figure out a date in the relatively near future. Obviously, we're coming up on the holidays, which is going to be difficult in anyone. But I would encourage that we have a public input meeting, and all those stakeholders from A to Z on Cheyenne Street be invited to that, and do a doodle poll where we can get the majority of those folks. But I believe the city needs to be proactive in this approach, and not wait for some of those folks to. Obviously, their input will be valued, but let's be aggressive. Let's go out and ask them to please join us and participate and offer their insights. Commissioner Simmons is, dead on as to the issues that we're dealing with there. We've been dealing with them since for too long, 3.5, 4 years. So enough's enough.
President Dardis, can I
Yes,
make one comment?
please.
I actually pulled up our cash balances, and we don't have all the collections in yet, but we're already currently sitting at 10.6 million in the economic development sales tax.
Say that again.
10.6 million.
In that account?
Yes, we haven't used it other than for basic things in quite a long time, so it's been building up.
That's why we need,
I did an inquiry today, and
that's why we need to
we had
do,
about $2.3 million.
I knew we had at least 8, but that's why we need to, sorry to interrupt, but that's why we need to get back to the TIFs, the pilots. I mean, that's what our people gave us that money to build business. So come on, let's start doing it. Let's do what we're supposed to do and get it going.
We've had opportunities, but they slipped through our fingers.
Yep, but we need to let the businesses and the public know that we're open for business again, I guess, and come back and let's be creative, please.
Okay, so we are accepting Mr. Nelson's proposal for the implementation of the grant award. Obviously, we move forward on that. We're all now informed on that. And then we're going to ask Mr. Nelson to do an analysis, public input of our community partners up and down Cheyenne Street, and to deal with that. And I would say there's no sense not having a discussion on an overall parking plan and not including the lights, because that's critical out there as well. With the NB building, the new building coming online very soon, we continue to, and we need to be proactive with those community partners that are working hard to develop our community. So, agree? We're good? May I have a motion, please, that they move forward on the grant award?
Mayor, I don't think we can, because this is for discussion purposes only. So you're gonna have to, if you want that, you'll have to put it on the next agenda.
Mr. Shockley, is that true?
Do you have a new business? You have non-agenda items. You could add it under non-agenda items.
Well, okay, well, just as long as we give him the go-ahead to continue to move forward on the grant and how they're gonna.
The $100,000 grant.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yes.
I'm fine with that. It's
All
the
right.
other part I want to have more discussion on, so
Yeah,
yes.
and I
Thank
can
you,
speak to
Mr.
that a
Nelson.
little bit if you'd like.
You've got our jumbled mess of directions of what to do, so
Okay.
make us look good.
So we'll take your feedback here tonight. We'll gather some more public input, and then we'll continue to refine kind of this 2-page document, and we'll bring it to you in the future with some recommended action steps. So,
and include our community investors in that. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Next order of business is item number 5. It's a second reading of the proposed parking ordinance 1214. We have with us this evening the Chief of Police for the City of West Fargo, Dennis Otterness. Presenting on this issue is on pages 89 through 94 in your packet. Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioner President Dardis and members of the commission. We'll stick with the theme of the night, it seems like tonight, with parking. And ordinance number 1214, as you pointed out, we're here for a second reading. You've got in your packet, I guess, just a summary of what the ordinance, the new ordinance or the ordinance changes proposes. And the only thing that's different from when I was before you back in September is a reduction in, and this is based on some discussions we had individually with commissioners and other city staff, a reduction in fees for removal of the wheel immobilization device. That was cut in half from $100 to $50. But that is largely the only change that was made from the first reading back in September. So I will stand for any questions if you have those.
Questions for the chief? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. One thing I neglected to ask back in September, and I wanted to ask now, is in this ordinance, was the boot removal fee or the wheel immobilization device fee, was that always in here? Was there always something in here for, we had the potential to boot a vehicle, we just haven't done it?
No, the ability to apply the wheel immobilization device is a new change to the ordinance. The original ordinance allowed the police department to tow vehicles, but it did not have what I believe is going to be a better option for our citizens, a much cheaper option for our citizens, which is the wheel immobilization device, which is why we wrote that in there. And then again, based on conversations that we have had since September, we cut that fee in half from $100 to $50 to remove that immobilization device.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions?
Maybe I'm just not seeing it here.
Mr. George.
Does it say after how many infractions with the wheel immobilization device? Is it still after the second one?
Yes, there was no change with the ability to either use a wheel immobilization device or impound a vehicle. It's 2 citations that are both more than 30 days in arrears.
So I'm also wondering, since it was 3 before, why only 2? Because it was three to tow before, right? Isn't that the current one, 3 to tow? But now we're bringing it down to 2 to tow or 2 for a wheel immobilization device. I'm just wondering why we're not giving people at least one more chance. Why is it only one? I mean, basically, the second strike, you're out instead of 3 strikes, you're out. Why the need for that?
Well, I'd have to look at the current ordinance to know if it states in there 3 right now. But the problem that we have right now is we're not doing either. And so whether it's 2 citations or 3 citations, we're not impounding vehicles, and we don't have a mechanism in place to get people to pay their fines once they receive a citation. So in theory, these could be stretched out over 60 days. If you receive a citation and don't pay it for at least 30 days, you're going to get a notice in the mail, automatically generated by the new vendor that was approved back in September, putting people on notice that if they don't pay their fine, that they've now got an additional fee on top of the parking citation, and if they get a second one, and that one goes to 30 days in arrears, they will now be receiving another letter saying that they are subject to a wheel immobilization device or an impound.
So I appreciate you bringing down the fine. I guess I'm still not very supportive of the second strike and having the potential to have a wheel immobilization device. I know you're not out to do that, but you can. I still have a problem supporting it, I will admit. And you know, I'm not gonna put up too big of a fight, but that's where I'm at, so.
I'm reading this, section 2A, multiple delinquent parking citations. Vehicles with two delinquents, so two delinquent citations past 30 days of the issue date are subject to a tire boot. So that would be on the third time, would it not? Or
No, it would be two that are 30 days both have to be 30 days in a row.
I see, okay, all right, thank you for that
So we
clarification.
wouldn't tow or put a wheel immobilization device on until the second one is now more than 30 days in arrears.
So technically, they could have 3 or 4 by then. By the
Absolutely.
time the process gets caught up. I mean, so.
Yes.
I think the key to me is that $50, you know, and then, I mean, I think we figured this out, but they are citizens, and especially the ones with less income, because that's the ones I worry about too. To me, they'd be a lot better off putting the device on than towing it, because you're looking at least double the money.
Oh, more than that.
I mean, especially if they get it on a Friday, and it's, the minute they get it, you could go an hour later, right? And I know you're still paying. So you could go a whole weekend, and you could have about 3-4 days under your belt, and you're talking hundreds of dollars compared to the $50 plus the, well, if you pay the $5 really, if you pay
Plus
it right
the
away.
citation. You're
Yeah, plus
correct,
the
Commissioner Simmons, and that's exactly why we left the wheel immobilization device in there. I think half is really an understatement. You could be looking at 5 to 10 times the costs when you start talking about an impound, storage fees, you know, coming up with proof of insurance, a licensed driver, valid registration, all of those things. Plus, people walk out and find their vehicle gone in the morning. The first call they're going to make is 911 to our dispatch center to report their car stolen, when in theory it's probably been impounded because of non-payment of parking fines. So I think the wheel immobilization device, from a, you know, just from a customer service perspective, leaves the vehicle parked there. People are going to come out, they're going to realize that they don't have their fines and fees paid up, and they can satisfy those right on their phone, their mobile phone if they want now, rather than having to come into the police department. And again, that's why we cut that removal fee down from $100 to $50 to really have a less, as little of an impact as we can. But it does take staff time. It's going to take, most of the time it'll be community service officers, so it won't be our police officers. But there are times during the day when we don't have CSOs working, so it might take a sworn officer out of other duties to be able to remove those wheel immobilization devices.
Commissioner Olson.
Just a comment. I know of an individual who went to a football game up at the Dome here about a month or so ago, not me. And rather than paying for the $5 parking fee, they parked in one of the hotels there. When they came out, that car was gone. There was no notification, no nothing. They had to go into the hotel and find out what happened to it, and here they found out it was impounded. They could not even call that place until Monday morning at 8 o'clock because they didn't open up. It cost $250 to get the car back. So the 60 days getting, being delinquent and all that person got one whoops. He didn't even get an oops. It was gone immediately. And so I think we're being very generous with the 60 days before we would put a boot on.
It's 60 days and 2 certified letters that are coming in the mail, letting people know that they are now subject not only to the increase, the fees, because they didn't pay their fines on time, but it's, each time you get each time there's a violation and you don't pay within 30 days, it escalates. And so they're going to be put on notice that they are now subject to either a wheel immobilization device or impound. And they're currently already subject to impound.
I have one question. So if people have outstanding parking violations now that they've not taken care of, how does that work into this system? They're starting over, so to speak, or they have to pay everything in arrears?
Well, our staff is, they already work diligently to try to get collection on the outstanding ones that we don't have, but we don't intend to utilize our staff time to put those old citations into the new system. a lot of times, depending on how old these parking citations are, there may be a new owner of a vehicle, the registered owner may have changed, it may have, a different owner may have gotten those parking citations, and so we are gonna proceed with this new system, if this passes, from today or tomorrow. We'll move forward with this new contractor, and but we don't intend to enter any old citations into the system, but we will still attempt to collect on those old citations.
Mr. Shockley, did you have a point for us?
Yeah, there was a question earlier about whether it was 2 or 3 prior citations. So in the current ordinance, it's 3, but keep in mind, the current ordinance does not have the prohibition that you have to have 30 days in delinquency. So this is actually a more lenient ordinance in that it gives the offender additional time to come into compliance. Under the current ordinance, they could have 3 that are 5 days past notice. So it's a different number, but you're giving them a longer time to come into compliance. I will note that one of the biggest complaints we hear in my office is about parking. People call all the time about parking, that there's somebody parking in my neighborhood or somebody parking in my stall. So it's clearly a policy issue for the commission, just letting you know that parking is on the mind of the public.
Just another point too, commissioners, if I can, to piggyback a little bit on our city attorney, is that this system that you approved is going to be so much more convenient for our general public to be able to satisfy and take care of these citations. They'll have a code that they can scan in. They can satisfy these citations right over their phone rather than having to take time away from work or personal life to come into City Hall to pay for these citations. So it's a much more robust system. It's much more, it's geared towards some, a lot of efficiencies, not only on the back end for our staff, but for people that actually have the violations too and just can't come in because they have work or other commitments, and we're not, able to take those payments on the weekends.
Yeah, thank you for that point, Chief, but what type of phone do they have to have in order to scan? I mean, is it, there's a
Well, they'll be
specific-
able to go online too if they have something at
Okay,
home.
all right, very good. Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you. I can attest to that because I got a ticket out in Kansas, and I was able to pay it online. It was much easier than trying to send it in, worrying if they got it or not. It just showed. So that's a good. My question, though, Chief, was actually in the ordinance now, if you wanted to, and you do not, but if you wanted to, and a car was in the no parking, you could tow it at any time. Is that correct?
We could, if it's
Okay.
parked, if it's parked illegally, again, depending on the situation, and all those are gonna be a little bit different. If we had somebody, that was a hazard, parked in an area that's gonna create a public safety or a hazard, we have the ability to do that now, and, or fire lane violations, fire hydrant violations, some of those things, handicap violations, some of those that are a little bit more expensive in terms of the amount of the fine, but also create other issues other than just a no parking or parking outside of normal hours.
Any additional questions for the chief? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioners? We're looking for an actionable item for the second reading of the proposed parking ordinance 1214 as before you this evening.
I'll make the motion, we approve the second reading.
Commissioner-
With the applicable changes to the fee.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please? Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of the proposed parking ordinances 1214 as presented this evening. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We have a 4-1 vote. My apologies, I didn't hear Commissioner Anderson. So we have a 4-1 vote. Motion passes. Item number 6 is the City of West Fargo logo. Commissioner Mark Simmons, it's on pages 95 and 96 in the packet. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. So, me and Commissioner George got together with Melissa and kind of went through some of the different designs and the costs, and then Commissioner Anderson, we had some input from him as well. So we came up with basically, and again, this is if we want to do anything. There's relative, according to Melissa, there's not a lot of cost in doing this. These little changes we can all do in-house, so I don't think we're talking finances at all. We're just talking about what we prefer. In A, you will see two different ones, A and B. I'll give you my perspective on, I actually like, did I get these mixed up now? Let's see on the row. Yeah, I like A, because I like the part that, and I went around town, and there's some places where if you look up at our logo behind us up here, that's all there is the logo. And to me, that's kind of like looking at an Apple logo or what have you. We all know what that logo means, but a lot of our citizens don't, and people that come through. And that's part of our story to me, to tell that logo. So we don't always have to combine. So what I don't like about B is that if you look at it, all kind of, it goes more into the logo. And I don't like, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Commissioner Simmons. Item A is the one with the city on the grow that is on a left margin. Item B, we named them this evening before the meeting started, so we could clarify, is where the city on the grow runs underneath the
You see
entire.
yours, so I got them right.
B
B,
and A.
yep, correct.
So, just so, if the public is looking online, the one that has a city on the grow under the entire logo is item B, and the one where it's just under City of West Fargo, a city on the grow on that left margin, does not go underneath our iconic logo. That's A that Commissioner Simmons is talking about.
So 95 in the packet is A, page 96
Better.
in the packet.
Thank you for
is
that.
B.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, I'll let you, just for my perspective is, again, when on B, it's right under there. To me, that blends too much together. It takes away from our logo, and I think that's where we want to go with that identity. And I know Commissioner George had something else that you wanted to bring up as well before we get more comments.
So I don't think either one is quite right yet. So here's what I would like. With B, I like the symmetry of the West Fargo lining up at the end, but I like what Commissioner Simmons is saying on A, how a city on the grow is not under this part of it. So if we could take, I don't know what the other people feel yet, but the symmetry, but yet the West Fargo on the grow just lined up with this. Because I like what Commissioner Simmons said, is this piece right here, like just recognizing that as a logo, like the Nike swoosh or what, Apple or whatever that is eventually just
So,
that.
may I ask for a clarification, Commissioner George? So when you're speaking like that, are you saying that you prefer the Fargo and the larger text along with then moving this over here? Is that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
You don't like,
I like the symmetry of this one. I think I don't like how the West sticks out over the Fargo, even though the city on the grow kind of lines up. I don't know, that's messy to me. I like the symmetry of this one.
It could be more bold like that, but just moved over. Does that, Melissa, make sense? What we're saying? I'm not,
any,
a question.
any other input from my other two commissioners on this side? Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, I like the symmetry of B, but I'm willing to look at other options, and I mean, however we want to cut this up and paste it together, just kind of, I mean, it sounds
What I would
crude there, but-
suggest, if I may, with Commissioner George's input this evening, that we get that design like you want it. That's item C then,
Okay.
okay? And so we'll bring this back again. And Commissioner, you two commissioners were appointed to that committee to work on that, so
Okay. So Robin likes that. Did either of you two have any thoughts on the matter?
I think it's an attempt, it's kind of plagiarizing what Chandler Thinks did with the font and the color scheme. I would think we would just be better off leaving it just like that because of how it all lines up. it fits better, I would say I'm not in favor of changing any of it.
Who were plagiarizing who?
This is basically the same font and color scheme that Chandler thinks.
That was on purpose. That was on purpose. We were
Yeah,
using
because-
what we paid them to do, using.
Right, but then
Yeah.
then I would use the go bold then if we're gonna use that, so I would just stay with what we've got.
Okay, appreciate your opinion.
Anyone else?
I,
Commissioner Simmons?
thank you. I don't know that we need to spend any more time and bring back. I think we can visualize what C is gonna be like. You wanna look at it.
I want it in front of us before we vote on it. This is, the colors and designs are a very personal choice, and I want all the commissioners to understand where this is,
Okay, then I'll make a motion to table this till the next meeting.
thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve, to table the branding identification till the next meeting. The committee meets again for other alternatives. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7, second reading of ordinance 1216. Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. Just briefly, this is the second reading of the ordinance prohibiting the feeding of wildlife within the city of West Fargo. This was an ordinance amendment to address the feeding of geese and other wildlife in the city. One of the questions that came up last month was regarding normal bird feeders. As long as the feeder is at least 5 feet off the ground, it would not be considered feeding birds. There's no change from this first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Questions for Mr. Shockley, commissioners?
I'll move we approve second reading.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of ordinance 1216, better known as the wildlife feeding ordinance, pages 97 through 99. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioners. Item 8 is a second reading of ordinance 1210 regarding the sales and use tax. Mr. Shockley, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. Just briefly, again, this is the second reading of the sales and use tax, increasing the sales and use tax to 2.5% as approved by the voters. There's been no changes between the first and second reading. I can certainly answer any questions that you might have. And just once again, for information, the proceeds of the additional half cent are dedicated to the police and fire uses.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Shockley on the second reading of 1210?
I'll make a motion to approve second
Thank you,
reading.
Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. When moved and seconded to approve the second reading of ordinance 1210 regarding the sales and use tax recently passed by the citizens of West Fargo. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9, Tina Fisk, City Administrator for the City of West Fargo. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. I have a few items for you today. I think it's on the very bottom. First of all, our first meeting in January lands on January 2nd, which is actually a holiday. And our offices will be closed. So I was wondering if you'd like to move it to the 3rd, which is your normal practice, or if you wanted to see what's on the agenda. What would you like to do?
Commissioners?
Doesn't matter to me.
I'd say move to the 3rd.
Agreed.
That's a Tuesday, I'm assuming.
Yes, it is.
Do we have a consensus?
Yep.
January 3rd, then.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item I have is, I just want to let you know that I will be out of the office tomorrow and most of Wednesday. I will be in Bismarck for League of Cities meetings and then the legislative workshop. And I know Commission President Dardis had planned to attend and other obligations got in his way. But I will be down there and then heading back on Wednesday. I'll be back in the office Thursday morning. On behalf of Betty Adams at the library, I want to share with you that the library received the Star Award. And it says the Star Award is based on the criteria that is documented in their annual report, and that's circulation per capita, hours open per week, program attendance per capita, computer Wi-Fi usage, and percentage of North Dakota library something standards met. I don't know what that means. But anyway, and the tiers are based on their budget, and so therefore they have received this award for the 2022 year. And I told her I would share that with you. In your correspondence, you will see that there is a letter that's kind of scribbled all over, and it's from Homeward Animal Shelter. And Dennis can probably explain this better than me, but we do have a location where animals go, but then sometimes they have to get forwarded to the Homeward Animal Shelter. At this time, we don't contribute to the Homeward Animal Shelter. I believe Bernie talked with them, and we had how many pets in there last?
19 animals.
19, yeah. So I'm not sure how you feel about the value of it. We had talked about it. Dennis, if you want to say something, or Chief Otterness?
Just that some animals end up there after we end up impounding them to West Fargo Animal Hospital to be placed for adoption or other things that may come up that they specialize in.
So, Commissioners, I did meet with 3 of their board of directors, or their executive director and 2 of their board of directors, and they made me aware that we were utilizing the shelter. We don't contribute. Fargo contributes and Cass County contributes, for the use of their services for that. And they are a very dedicated group of animal activists that they do not want to have to dispose of these animals, so they have to house them and feed them and all of those types of things. And they take care of neutering or, spaying of these animals when they're brought in. So they've got ongoing expenses. So I felt compelled that I share it with you and for your consideration if we, some type of financial commitment to them for the services that they do provide our citizens and our community. And I don't have a recommendation dollar amount. Tina and I, Mrs. Fisk and I briefly talked about the possibility of around $2,000. Commissioner?
I'm fine with that, and I'd be willing to make that motion right now if there's no other objections.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. I have a motion and second by Commissioner George that we contribute $2,000 to the coming year for the Homeward Animal Shelter. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Where would the funds come from? From what?
Good question, Mrs. Fisk.
Yeah, from.
Generally, if this was already in the budget, it would come out of our non-departmental general fund. My suggestion to you would be, we have a contingencies line item in the general fund that, for unforeseen things like this that you want to accomplish, and so we could take it from there.
I just wanted to
Yep,
identify.
absolutely, that's fine. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Anything else for us, Mrs. Fisk?
Just 2 more things. One, I've been asked by our safety coordinator, Nathan Slasky, to have all of you put on your calendars for the Battle of the Badges blood drive coming up. It will be held at the Doubletree. There'll be more information, I'm sure, emailed out. It will be Tuesday, December 27th from 12 to 6, the 28th from 12 to 6, and the 29th from 9 to 1:30. And so it's Team PD against Team Fire. PD is here, so yay, PD, go win. So, but anyway.
Watching though.
It's just a reminder, yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, anyway. So I just wanted to put that information out there. Last of all, I've been meaning to do this for a long time. I wanted to express a large thank you to the Public Works staff. If you've noticed this summer, this fall, how beautiful not only City Hall looks, but all the plantings along Main Avenue and Cheyenne Street, and all the right-of-ways, and all the other work, the beautiful plantings that came with our road diet project. They've done an amazing job. And then they topped it off with being able to get the Christmas trees set up and all the decorations up and working and all the wonderful things so that you could have a beautiful tree lighting, which I saw you were all able to attend. So I just wanted to make sure that I expressed to them that we sometimes forget that there's a lot of those people in the background, and they really do make our city look beautiful. So that was all I had. Thank you very much.
Questions for Mrs. Fisk, anyone? Thank you.
Yep.
Correspondence, there is one more piece of correspondence I'd like to call to the commissioner's attention and to the public. There's an upcoming West Fargo Fire Community Health Alliance informational meeting from 10 a.m. to 12, Wednesday, December 14th. I've sat in on this original one when she presented to the fire department. It is a very interesting dynamic that the St. Louis Park Fire Department does with regard to community health and reporting back after firefighters or whomever go into their homes. It's called a Care Resource Connection. It's worthy of your time to understand what they're doing. The service that this provides to the community is amazing. It really is. So that again is on at the West Fargo City Hall, and it's December 14th, and it's from 10 a.m. to noon. Like I said, I've sat in on their original presentation, and I was extremely impressed. The other thing that, is there anything else for non-agenda for the commissioners? Commissioner
I
Simmons.
would like to make a comment if I could.
Please.
Tina stole part of my thunder there, but I also, with the tree lighting, wanted to thank a group of people that not only help with the tree lighting, like Tina mentioned, but they help with the blockades, they help with the street fair, the cruise night. They're the heavy lifters, and that's our Public Works Department. They do a great job, so I just wanted to publicly thank them as well.
Well, you both got me. I already had notes on mine to do the same thing. But see, Commissioners, you see it right there. I'd also like to thank West Fargo Events for that actual event and how we did the tree lighting. All of the commissioners were there. I thank you for that. And inviting the children of the group to come up. We had a mad rush up there, and we must have had 50 to 60 children all wanting to turn on the switch at the same time. So it was a great community event. I would estimate 300 to 350 people there. To Public Works, thank you. Yes, they've got Cheyenne Street looking beautiful with all of the decorations they have on the light poles. And of course, a special thank you. We had a new a community partner that stepped up in Excel Energy, and Mr. Tony Grinberg, and contributing a $5,000 fund to our additional Christmas decorations and those types of things. So it was a great event, and again, I'm so pleased that all the commissioners could participate and be there as well. Also, we have some other news that I think is worthy of our community. Both the West Fargo Cheyenne High School girls volleyball team and the girls swimming and diving teams won the North Dakota Class A championships last month. It's the first time that Cheyenne High School has ever won either one of those things. They are state champions, and our young people make us very, very proud in our community. So congratulations to the West Fargo Cheyenne girls volleyball team and the girls swimming and diving teams. Good job. Commissioners, do you have anything else that should come before the commission this evening? If not, Commissioner Simmons.
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
I open them up. I'm not keep open them all up. I'm not sure. On what? That's fine. Yeah. I'm totally fine. I just know that Melissa wanted to get it going, so that's fine.
Next.